It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. Still feeling a little jet-lagged. A little punchy from Tuesday night. I'm a little too old to pull all-nighters. I don't have the youthful vigor of a Chuck Todd anymore. All right, time for the daily disclaimer. We have to do it these days. Reminder here, as I tape this, it's early morning, Thursday, November 5th. So things may have happened between the time I recorded this program and the time you're listening to it right now as you listen. So with that proviso out of the way, the latest I have, Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, Pennsylvania. Those are the four that remain. Arizona is just safely Joe's. There's no getting around it, as is Nevada. I don't see how that changes. And with... I don't know about you, but the latest I see, the counts coming in from Pennsylvania and Georgia, I think Joe's going to take all four of them. We can just put this thing to rest. You know, we're not going to have that moment as a nation. You know, that beautiful moment when the AP calls it and then all the networks call it within just minutes of each other, and we have a new president. And the loser makes the phone call to concede, and we have a moment, and that would have been our dancing in the street moment. We're not going to have that. We've been robbed of that, of course, because, well, just because. Because it's 2020 and because of the Orange Menace and everything is horrible. So, of course, this long national nightmare has got to end this way. We're even robbed of that one simple joy. Instead, we're going to have that moment kind of over time. It's going to wash over us kind of slowly. It's going to kind of ease into our consciousness. Yes, I guess this is really happening. Okay, all right. And we'll be all alone in our houses and apartments. And we'll suddenly just realize, oh, okay, I guess it's over? Yeah. So, yeah, we're robbed. We've been robbed of that wonderful moment where we all jump and shout and cheer. And, of course, the Orange Menace is never going to make that phone call. He's never going to concede. It's just going to have to go through the process here. Yeah, the AP, they'll call it. Other news outlets will call it. They'll declare Joe the winner. And over the next few days, all of them, Nevada, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, even North Carolina. I keep forgetting to mention North Carolina. I'll bet they even come through for Joe. I bet they all do. But again, the Orange Menace won't concede, so then we just go through the process. The states go through their state certification, their canvassing, whatever they call it, whatever legal protocols they have to deal with. They'll just do it, and on December 14th, the electors will do their thing, and we'll have a process. And it's kind of slow and kind of boring, and I got to tell you, one thing that I've been really impressed with, I can't say this enough. I should say this on a daily basis. I am in awe of competent people of goodwill. And anybody I've seen interviewed on my TV box, from election offices, secretaries of state, election officials, people in charge, they're so calm, they're so smart, they're so competent. It just makes my heart sing. There are so many good people in this world. It's something we just have to remind ourselves of. Because the dopes and the loudmouths get so much airtime, we tend to forget how many really good, honest, competent, humble people there are getting up every day and doing a great job. You know? And I'll even put myself in that category of loudmouths who get too much attention. You know, I'm a loudmouth. I'm competent at very little. There's very little I'm good at. There's really not much I'm good at. except running my mouth. And I get a radio show, and I get to yell about things. Well, other people, good people, people I admire, people that are 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times better than me, are getting up every day and doing a really good job. And I just want to send every ounce of my love, admiration, and respect to all those good people getting up every day and doing it. I mean, you're so great. And I'm so glad that I'm sharing this planet with you. So many good people. And then there's the and then there's the bad people. I don't know. 70 million people, when it's all said and done, voted for the Orange Menace. How, and then I shake my head and I wonder, how can that be? How can I share the planet with these people? What the hell is wrong with them? How did they become so lost, so hurt, so sick, so damaged? And you know how I feel about this whole get along thing. Both sides have to understand each other and compromise. And no, there's good and there's bad. And there's no compromising with evil. And 70 million people voted for evil. And how does this happen? These are questions much larger than I'm capable of answering. But we do. We share this country. We share this planet with 70 million people who voted for the Orange Menace. And we have to move forward somehow. We've got to live together. I don't know what to do. I mean, I think these people need some sort of saving. Not that I'm going to save them. I don't know how to save them. If I did, I'd do it. They don't want to be saved. I don't know if they deserve to be saved. But for the sake of this nation, for the sake of the planet, these people have to find some healing. Because that 70 million people is a damn whole lot of people. And they can do some real damage. They've been doing real damage. They continue to do real damage as we set all-time records for cases and deaths from the virus. Somehow, we got to save these people from themselves, from their own wretched lives. I don't know how to do it. I'm not shy with my advice. If I had good ideas, I'd share it with you. And over time, that's just what we'll do. I've been feeling, I don't know, kind of philosophical over the last 24, 48 hours. I think it's also because because my sleep is all off. So, yeah, I've been feeling a little emotional, a little philosophical about, where we go next. How do we approach this thing? I mean, purging the Orange Menace. Again, we haven't had our beautiful moment to dance in the streets, and we might be robbed of that. But let's face it, this thing is over. We have purged the Orange Menace. Yes, we have to keep diligent. There are a few things we have to keep on top of. He's going to use every trick in his book. He's going to continue to lie and steal and cheat and do what he does. And he gets all of his buddies in there with him, all his little crime family, and Rudy and whatever other henchmen he can find. And they'll go to the courts and they'll try to get Amy Coney Barrett to back him up in the Supreme Court. Yes, there's all sorts of things he can still try to do. It's just he's going to fail miserably, like every other failure in his life. Okay, don't want to go there. But the point is, we've purged him. He's like a cancerous tumor we've just cut out. And now we have to think about our life going forward. I mean, obviously, just having Joe Biden in the White House is not even remotely close enough to solve our problems. We still need real fundamental change, right? But at least we can focus on that change. We don't have to be in this fever, this nightmare of impending doom and imminent danger around every corner that we've been facing for the last 4 years, because this guy and his people had real, tangible power over people's lives. He's murdered hundreds of thousands of people, quite literally. Again, I don't want to go back there. My mind is going forward today, and it's a little fuzzy because I'm lacking sleep. But there's a change. There's a fundamental change. There's a radical change that we have to hone. We have to sculpt. We have to fashion, bring into focus, so that we can embrace it. We can share it with others. We can embrace it as a community, but it's got to be fundamental. It's got to be radical. It's got to be real. And it's got to be accessible. By that I mean we can't leave people behind. It can't be an elitist, intellectualist, artist. I fancy myself to be in that little group. I want to be Gertrude Stein all the time, right? But it's got to be the kind of fundamental change that we can all understand in our hearts. We can embody it. We can envelop into our culture, into our spirituality. People have to be able to wrap their arms around it, wrap their heads around it. I know I'm speaking in vagaries right now because it's the best I can do. But the purging of the Orange Menace has opened the window of opportunity for us to start thinking about these things, thinking about this fundamental change. Because then you can go to the particulars. You can go to climate change. You can go to universal health care, economic justice, social justice. We still have very, very big things to do. But the good news today is that we've purged the cancer that is the Orange Menace. And there are millions and millions of really good, fine people that we're sharing this planet with. All right, before I allow myself to get entirely wrapped up in this kind of heady talk, we still have to get up every day and face some challenges. Going to remind you again of protecttheresults.com. There have been people in the streets. We haven't seen big, massive numbers, but there are people out there, and that is a necessary component. And depending on which way the headlines break over the next few days, if the bad guys look like they're having some success in the courts, trying to shut down counting, I really honestly think it's all over. I think they don't have a chance at this. But just to be safe, keep this in the back of your mind. ProtectTheResults.com, a good place to organize. Find an event or make one of your own if you need to. We've talked about unions considering a general strike, the public at large, general boycott. These are tools that need to be at the ready. I'm not calling us to arms right now, but definitely they need to be ready. I might be a little too over-optimistic right now in this moment, but the way I look at it, the Orange Menace is just kind of a pathetic figure at this point, just dying on the vine. And the ridiculous court battles that he's trying to win with, and his motley group of deplorables who knock on the doors in Detroit where they're counting and demand that they stop or they let them in. It's all just so sad and pathetic. And forgive me if this turns out to be naive, but I really don't have much fear of them. I think the remaining states to be counted are all going to wind up in Joe's column, and it's just going to be over. So, well, there's going to be plenty of time. Again, this is a slow roll compared to what we're used to. But the post-election post-mortem has already begun, and that will continue for a while. Who won where and why, and all the demographics start to come out and the numbers start to come out. So that's a little parlor game. That's kind of fun. I suppose it might have some actual usefulness to those who run campaigns, I guess. I tend to get a little bit cynical about that whole cottage industry. The one thing I will say is, I could be right, I could be wrong, but as a political strategist, I really look forward to the day when candidates of the left can run unapologetically. And there's certainly plenty of examples here. We've got the AOC example, and anybody who's kind of aligned with her or has been inspired by her. You're not constantly apologizing for being a lefty. Joe and Kamala, when asked about socialism, they have to literally laugh. Oh, they laugh. It's just so ridiculous. Oh, of course we're not socialists. No, what I really look forward to is when a real socialist can stand up, democratic socialists, and let's not get our terms mixed up here. We're not talking Cuba and Venezuela. We're talking Norway and Sweden. You're smart. I don't have to explain this to you. But yeah, especially at the presidential level, I really look forward to the time when a real lefty can stand up and when accused, quotation marks, of being a socialist, can just look people right in the eye and say, yeah, damn right, I'm a socialist. I'm a democratic socialist, and this is what it means, and there's nothing to be afraid of. And these are the hundreds of millions of people who understand this already and aren't afraid of it and embrace it and think you're kind of an old fuddy-duddy fool for being afraid of it. Yeah, the unapologetic lefty who just takes every so-called accusation and just turns it right around on them. Yes, I do want universal health care. Yes, it is a right. Healthcare is a right, an absolute human right. And here's why, and here's my argument, and I think more people will vote for me. Yes, I absolutely want legal weed, and here's why. See, once you get to a certain level of the Democratic Party, you've got to apologize for all of these ideas, or you got to hide from them, run from them. I've been saying for a long time that if I voted for Joe, it would be my very last vote for a Democrat. This is it. This is my swan song. And it was only because of the imminent threat of all the things we've talked about in the White House. The only thing that would ever get me to vote for a Democrat again is if we have a similar imminent threat like this one. Or there's one other way you could get me to vote for a Democrat, and that is if AOC, the Squad, and the rest of them are on the ballot, and that's who I'm voting for. And they are, as I've just described, unapologetically left. They're not hiding, they're not pretending, they're not apologizing. They're standing up, they're saying exactly what and who they are. And if the Democrats ever nominated somebody like that, I'd vote for him. I saw a really funny post the other day. You know, I'm coming to you from River West, the greatest neighborhood in the world here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And a friend of mine posted this. You got to shoot your gun in the air a couple times a week to slow down gentrification. Yeah, River West. You know my great love for this neighborhood. And yeah, we have avoided gentrification. We are always right on that kind of borderline of being a really great neighborhood or being kind of a sketchy neighborhood. You know, things happen. Things happen, especially after dark, that we're not that proud of. But we got a great community going. We have a great food co-op, local neighborhood organizations, events, plenty of ways to get together and share ideas. And it's a wonderful neighborhood. It's diverse. And so importantly, for the time being, we are hanging on. We have avoided gentrification while it happens all around us. So knock on some wood, and you got to shoot your gun in the air a couple times a week to slow down gentrification. That was a nice little post. Yeah, you know, getting back to this whole socialist thing, one of the post-mortem conversations we're having right out of the gate here is the Latino vote. Oh my gosh. The networks, rightfully so, are spending an awful lot of time on the Latino vote. And one of the things they're pointing out is how much of that vote going to the Orange Menace because of the whole quote-unquote socialist argument. The Cuban Americans and other immigrants from Venezuela and Latin American countries that have had trouble with some pretty sketchy socialism. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, goes up, goes down. It's good, then it's corrupt, and we hear the stories. Venezuela is certainly the poster child of that very sad story. And even if you're the greatest defender of Latin American socialism, you got to remember the people who are fleeing are either the poor who are legitimately struggling and have their reasons to fear what they call socialism, or immigrants might represent a more elitist, a more wealthy cohort, and they're fleeing to save their own wealth. They like their money and they want to keep it. So socialism doesn't work for them in that regard. So there are a lot of Latinos in this country who have one of those backgrounds, and they really buy into this anti-socialist rhetoric from the right-wingers and from the Orange Menace. So that's been a very interesting post-mortem, breaking down the vote and looking forward to how politicians and campaigns move forward in the future. But now, there it gets back to this whole running unapologetically. You have to be able to stand up and say, yeah, this is what I believe. Human rights, healthcare, a shared distribution of created wealth. There aren't any Norwegian Americans or Swedish Americans who are afraid of socialism. I've got a friend. I talk about my conservative friends occasionally. One of my friends lived in the Soviet Union when it was the Soviet Union. And so he puts himself in that category. Anything that, with any whiff of socialism or communism, which they equate as the same, that's what makes him so ultra right-wing and ultra conservative, because he hears the word socialism and he absolutely believes the slippery slope arguments and he fears nothing more than that. And he has his experience from the Soviet Union that informs this opinion. So he becomes this very fervent Trumpster. But I think if a candidate and their supporters can really stand up with no apologies, say, yes, we're talking about Norway, Sweden, Denmark. We're not talking about Cuba, Venezuela, the Soviet Union. Isn't that an argument that can be won? I mean, we haven't so far, but we can't give up on it. And the Bernie AOC wing of the Democrats have not given up on winning that argument. Joe and Kamala have given up on winning that argument. And that's why I say I will never again vote for a Democrat unless and until it's AOC or a similar clone. By the way, she turns 35 in 2024, before the election. Just a little thought there. AOC 2024. Anyway, what else we got? Oh, speaking of conservative friends, check in on your conservative friends. Make sure they're okay. I'm worried about my conservative friends. I've only got a couple left. And one of them, this is the friend from the Soviet Union who's been in America now for many, many, many years. I don't know how many. Post this. Can you imagine, 5 minutes before the end, the referee stops the game for an absolutely absurd reason, while the advantage and win of one of the teams is obvious to everyone. And then the corrupt referee announces that the result of the game is unknown at the moment and will be determined other ways. Okay, I don't blame you if you couldn't follow that. But my dear friend here, believe me, I'm using the word very loosely. There are just a million ways this is wrong. How can you get so much wrong in one short little post? He doesn't understand how sports work. He doesn't understand how politics works. He doesn't understand basic truth versus lies. All right, so first of all, let's break this down a minute. He says 5 minutes before the end. All right, what analogy are you making here? 5 minutes before the end. It ended. Voting ended. It wasn't before the end. Voting ended. So if that's what you mean, you're confused. The counting has not yet ended, if that's what you're talking about. But the referee stops the game. Who's the referee in this analogy? I'm not following. I'm not quite following. The secretaries of state in the various states? The election officials in every county and city? Are these the referees you're talking about? I'm not sure. And how did they stop the game exactly? They want to continue the game. They're counting. If that's the game in your analogy, again, you're very confusing. If the game is the full election process, both casting and counting the votes, well, then the game continues. You're the one who wants to stop it. Okay, for an absolutely absurd reason. I'm not sure what that means at all. I don't know at all. While the advantage and win of one of the teams is obvious. So the fact that the Orange Menace was leading in the vote count 5 minutes before the end, as you put it, again, you're the one who wants to stop the process. And then the corrupt referee. Okay, now who again is the corrupt referee? Again, these good people counting votes, just doing their job. The corrupt referee announces that the result of the game is unknown. Well, yeah, it is, because we're still counting votes. and will be determined other ways. I don't know what that means. Again, I have no idea what that means. And this post got tons and tons of support in the comment thread. All right, my other conservative friend, he hasn't really weighed in since Tuesday night. I checked on him to see how he was doing. He's the guy I've talked to you about many times. He's a contrarian. He's a fan of YouTube experts. Everything that has the slightest whiff of establishment, he abhors. He wound up voting for Kanye West. He posted a picture of his ballot. He wrote in Kanye West. That's this guy. So he's been quiet since Tuesday night, except for this. He marked himself safe. You know how you can mark yourself safe on Facebook? He marked himself safe from the earthquake and tsunami in Izmir province, Turkey. Now, this is my friend's idea of humor. And this gets back to my thoughts earlier. For whatever reason, I don't know what the reason is, some people are just sick. Their minds, their souls, their hearts, they're just sick. Now, this is just a very small example, but I think it's an illustrative example of this sickness. Why would you mark yourself safe when you live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin? Why would you mark yourself safe from the earthquake and tsunami in Izmir province, Turkey? No other comment, just mark yourself safe. He thinks this is funny. This is his idea of humor. To take a catastrophic event that's impacted the lives of thousands and thousands of people, that's killed people, upended people, ruined lives. How do you use something like that to make a really dumb little joke on Facebook? Again, a small example of a very, very large problem. The lack of empathy, the callous narcissism, this absolutely religious belief in individualism as opposed to communitarianism, hence the fear of socialism. This is such a sad and specific illustration of that mindset and what I'm calling a sickness in these 70 million people who voted for the Orange Menace because it's just all about them and their right to be racist, their right to be selfish, their right to keep every last penny out of the tax collector's hands. God forbid it goes to somebody who needs it. This is a very sick and sad group. And we've got to find their hearts if they've got them. Again, this is a very small little incident. My friend marking himself safe from the earthquake and tsunami in Izmir province, Turkey. But I think it represents a very large problem that we have. And whatever solutions we have going forward, we have to find a way. We have to find a way to reach these people, to save these people. How sad is this? All right. So there it is. I'm done for today. Let's have more random thoughts tomorrow and every day as we move forward. And I do love you. This is The Log. I'm Charles Purcell.